Some of you are waiting to be validated before you start, and that's what's delaying your life, your path, you. I had to learn this the hard way. Not everyone is going to validate you before you build, and that's okay because you're supposed to validate yourself, right? So, I started noticing a while back how easy it is for me to wait. Now, I share a lot about my story growing up. I'm the youngest, and when you're the youngest, often you're told to wait. Wait your turn. You'll see an older sibling doing something. Maybe you want to do it and you're told to wait. We're trained to wait in school, right? Like you have to raise your hand, wait to be called on, ask permission to do X, Y, and Z, right? Wait for support, wait to be seen. Often we just are waiting and waiting, wait for a milestone, right? Oh, you can't do X, Y, and Z because you haven't done this yet. Even in my own life, y'all, I've shared a lot about my story. I've been passed over, I've been undervalued. I found myself waiting and waiting and waiting, right? And for a minute, when I was being passed over and undervalued, I internalized it. I took it to mean that I needed to keep waiting for something, right? Some magical permission, right? But what I started to realize is just because someone doesn't recognize my value or your value doesn't mean it's not there, right? In a lot of ways, I was waiting for confirmation from people who didn't have a vision for where I was going. Often I found myself waiting on validation for people who also had not validated themselves. They may not have a vision for where they're going either, right? That's when I had a decision to make. I stopped waiting to be validated and I started building anyway. I started posting anyway. I started speaking up in spaces anyway. I started pitching myself anyway, right? Not when everything made sense. Not because I feel ready. Not because everyone agrees that I should step into some space and start, but when I knew I was called to move, right? And honestly, I can now see looking back that God was developing me in those seasons, even when it felt like I was being overlooked, even when I was waiting. One of my favorite biblical stories, and I talk a lot about like women in the Bible because I feel like often when I grew up, I didn't hear about powerful women. I heard about obedient women and I heard a lot about the same women. But when I got older, I started realizing there were more stories in the Bible that I knew of growing up, and a lot of them were bolder. A lot of these women's stories, even if they were just one scripture or one sentence, it was very empowering to read or to see their influence. And so, some of my favorite women in the Bible or are found in the book of Numbers, and I think it's also a story about them in Joshua. But these are the daughters of Zelophehad, and Zelophehad is part of Joseph's lineage. Joseph was the youngest of his siblings, right? And he was sold by his own brothers into slavery. He ended up rising up to become second in command under Pharaoh, and so this is a part of his lineage. So Joseph, he got his family established in Egypt. When you fast forward in the Bible, you get to Moses' story, and that's when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt, right? And so this this story that I'm referring to is found when the children of Israel leave Egypt and they're about to enter the promised land. Now, this is about five sisters, right, who didn't wait for permission, but they did what they needed to do to secure their piece of the inheritance because their father had passed away and none of the five daughters had been married off, right? Which I also find quite interesting. But these young ladies decided to speak up. And so, where you can find their story is Numbers chapter 27, verse 1. And I like the message version of the Bible because it's easy to understand. And it says, the daughters of Zelophehad showed up. You know what it don't say? It doesn't say they waited for permission to show up. It doesn't say they asked if it was okay to show up. It doesn't say that they waited for other people to agree that they should show up. It says they showed up, right? Their father was the son of Hefer, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh. Manasseh, that was one of Joseph's sons, right? Belonging to the clans of Manasseh, son of Joseph. The daughters' names were Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah. So they came to the entrance of the tent meeting. They stood before Moses and Eleazar the priest and before the leaders and said, "Our fathers died in the wilderness." He wasn't a part of Korah's rebel anti God gang. He died for his own sins and he left no sons. But why should our father's name die out from his clan just because he had no sons? So give us an inheritance among our father's relatives. Moses brought their case to God, and God ruled and said, Zelophehad's daughters are right. Give them land as an inheritance among their father's relatives. Give them their father's inheritance. Now, this story, when I first read it, just blew my mind. A, like I said, I had not heard about this story growing up. And B, they didn't wait for permission. They showed up. They stated their case. Hey, you're about to give out land. We're about to go into the promised land. Our father died. He doesn't have sons, but we still want this land. What's up? So Moses, whenever he heard the cases, had to take it to God. And God literally said, these daughters are correct. Give them their inheritance. They couldn't have gotten their inheritance had they not shown up, spoken up, and asked. And they didn't wait on permission. They didn't take a poll. They didn't wait to be told women shouldn't speak up. They got up and they went and got their stuff, okay? And so I love this story because it has always just made me feel just a little bit more comforted and empowered, right? My next point, right? Building looks like showing up consistently and creating structure. And so for me, I had to decide to show up anyway, just like these daughters. I had to decide to speak up and build whatever platform I was setting out to build, right? Because validation from other people doesn't build confidence, evidence does. Validation from others does not build your confidence. Evidence does, and you can only get evidence by taking action, right? So I just wanted to share that. That's been on my mind a lot lately. Often, like I said, in past seasons, I found myself waiting for permission that I did not need from others. I needed it from myself. I needed it from God, but I could have moved forward earlier than I did. Now, in some regards, I was being developed, and there are seasons for development. But one mentor told me a long time ago, you can be in the eighth grade, right? Think about someone that is in the eighth grade. Can they help someone in the fifth grade? The answer is yes. Can an eighth grader give wisdom to a fifth grader? They can. And so the point is that just because I am still being developed, still in school, etc., whatever it may be for you in your life, doesn't mean I don't have anything to share with someone who may not be on the step I'm on. My expertise, my wisdom, all of that is still valid for a step that I've already passed, right? And so I'm telling you today, do not wait for permission from other people or validation all the time to be seen, to speak up, to walk in your purpose. You can start walking in it right now in various ways, right? It may not be the big thing, but there are other ways that you can start walking into your purpose, doing what you're called to do, building and validating yourself, right? Listen, so if you feel overlooked right now, I don't want you to shrink. I want you to start building. And you're not alone, right? Because the same season that feels like you're being ignored might actually be where you're being prepared. That's been my experience. And I bet that's a lot of y'all's experiences too, right? That's actually, I want to share why I created my community. I have a school community, and it is for women who are ready to stop waiting for others to validate them and to start moving with intention. If that's you, you can join us. The link will be in the description. I'll also pin a comment. But listen, be empowered and be emboldened, and know that you do not need permission to start building whatever your vision is. I will see you in the next video. Take care.